So we have a new poll out of Iraqis and what they think of America, which is a really interesting poll. So The Hill explains here, nearly 1/3 of Iraqis think the United States supports terrorism in general and ISIS specifically, according to a recent State Department Inspector General report. Okay, now, cue many people who hear this and they go, stupid conspiracy theories, what a joke this is. Did they really say that the U.S. supports ISIS? How dare they? Well, they're actually kind of right about this. Now, I'm not saying it in the Alex Jones way of like, oh, we made ISIS and we gave al-Baghdadi his guns and said, now we want you to go do jihad. I don't mean it in the Alex Jones way. I mean it in the way that, and this is on record, the U.S. government, early on in the Syrian civil war, they said, Assad is our enemy, the rebels are our friends. Well, the rebels have largely been taken over by Islamists and jihadists, including Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And the U.S. went as far as to say, it was General Petraeus who floated this in a meeting with the executive branch. He said, well, let's arm Al-Qaeda to fight ISIS. A fucking U.S. general says, let's arm Al-Qaeda, the people that did 9/11. How fucking immensely stupid can you be? But, so they're actually kind of right when they say, I don't know, I think the U.S. is maybe on the side of ISIS. It's not that they're explicitly on the side of ISIS, they just oftentimes happen to be on the side of the allies of ISIS. So Saudi Arabia, there's been a lot of money and arms flowing from Saudi Arabia to ISIS for obvious reasons. They share an ideology and they want to topple Assad, the Shia Alawite regime in Syria. So we're on the side of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, technically al-Nusra, which is Al-Qaeda in Syria, and we're on the side of jihadists and Islamists and Salafists who make up, and Turkey, by the way, Erdogan, who's been arming Nusra, who are fighting Assad and the Shias and the Kurds even. The Kurds are Sunni, but they've now aligned with Assad and the Shias because they realize the rebel movement is now almost all fucking terrorists. So they're not wrong when they say, hey, I think the U.S. supports ISIS. Kind of. Now, obviously, we also, at the same time that we're arming their allies, and many of the weapons are getting to them still, we do bombing missions against them in Syria. But this is classic U.S. foreign policy schizophrenia that we've had for so long now. We had it going all the way back to Reagan, when you armed the Mujahideen, who later became the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, and then you fight the people that you armed, who are still using your arms against you. Classic U.S., foreign policy nonsense, no clue what we're doing. We're an idiot empire chasing its own tail. So, yeah, we kind of support them and then bomb them at the same time. The fuck? Okay, so they continue here. Further, about half of Iraqi Sunnis and Shiites say they completely oppose the U.S.-led coalition fighting ISIS. Okay, so again, they think that the U.S. is on the side of ISIS, but then when they're asked by the pollster, hey, would you support them fighting ISIS? They go, no, because I don't trust them. I don't even really think that they're doing that. And again, it's about half of Iraqi Sunnis and Shias say that. So half of both populations are like, I don't trust those motherfuckers. Now again, why? Let's dig deeper here. Well, number one is none of our business. And number two, they just don't trust us. And they have good reason not to trust us because we flipped sides so many times in Iraq. There was a time where we just supported the Shias. Then there was a time we just supported the Sunnis. Then there was a time when we tried to do both. Right now, we're trying to do both. When it's in Iraq, we're on the side of the Shias fighting the Sunnis. But when you cross the border into Syria, we flip, and we're on the side of Sunnis fighting Shias. I don't even think they can explain to you what's happening. And in fact, we know they can't because there was a article that broke recently. The CIA is arming one group in the Syrian civil war, and the Pentagon is arming the other group, and they're fighting each other. Two different parts of the U.S. government are funding and arming different Syrian rebels who are fighting each other. Unbelievable. This is what happens when you have an empire that gets out of control, and this is what happens when you have a military-industrial complex. More, quote, about 40% of Iraqis believe the United States is working to destabilize Iraq and control its natural resources. The U.S. image among Iraqis fell from 38% favorable in December 2014 to 18% in August. According to the report, the drop is greatest among Sunnis, the report says, where favorability declined from 54% to 10%. Okay, now again, understand that. The reason why the support in the Sunni population has dropped even more is that specifically in Iraq, we're supporting the Shia militias to fight against the jihadists. It's just that when you cross the border into Syria, we're supporting the Sunnis and oftentimes Islamists and jihadists to fight against Assad, the Shia Alawite leader in Syria. I know this is a lot for everybody to digest and for everybody to get, but just know that as confused as you feel, this is as confused as people in the U.S. government who are making these decisions feel. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. This idea that like, oh, I'm sure we get what we're doing, and I'm sure we have smart policy guys making the decisions. No. You don't do what we are doing without being completely and utterly confused in every imaginable way. And then finally, I want to leave you with this. In case you don't know, hey, should we still be there? Let me think about this. Well, let's go ahead and quote Ayman al-Zawahiri, who's of course the al-Qaeda leader today. Now, about a year ago, he said the following. In the midst of a comment about how ISIS is his enemy, for those of you who don't know, al-Qaeda and ISIS are enemies. ISIS is a branch-off group. They were al-Qaeda in Iraq, and now the organizations hate each other. The terrorist groups hate each other. So, listen to what the head of al-Qaeda said. If I were in Iraq or Syria, I would cooperate with ISIS, sworn enemies. I would cooperate with ISIS in killing the Crusaders and secularists and Shiites, even though I don't recognize the legitimacy of their state, because the matter is bigger than that. So do you understand what he's saying here? ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they are sworn enemies. Sworn enemies. But he says, oh no, but if I was there, yes, I would team up with ISIS. I would team up with jihadists of all stripes. Why? Because we have a bigger enemy. The bigger enemy, the bigger evil is Westerners who are there, secularists, and Shias. He's saying, we're fighting you because you're here. And we will make alliances with people who we otherwise would be fighting because you're here. So if you're not there, you remove the West, you remove the U.S., what's going to happen? ISIS and Al-Qaeda turn their guns on each other like they've promised to do, and they start fighting each other. Bill Maher said this, a few months ago. It's never been more clear. They're telling you, we are a problem that we'll solve ourselves if you get the fuck out. What would be better than ISIS and Al-Qaeda just fighting each other until all of them are dead? By all means, go ahead. So, what are we doing? What are we doing? Now, again, don't get me wrong. Does somebody need to fight ISIS? Yes, of course. It's good to see ISIS and Al-Qaeda fight each other. Good to see jihadists and Islamists fight each other. Do I support Kurds fighting them? Yes. Do I support Shias fighting them? Yes. I support the nations in the region. This is like Bernie Sanders says all the time. They can fight, they can hold their own, and if we need to give them some sort of backing, whether it's humanitarian aid or otherwise, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I'm even fine with, if you go through the proper legal channels, you go through the UN, you go through NATO, you get whatever approval you need to get through Congress. I'm even fine with using special forces in some instances to get high-value targets and helping them that way. But what we're doing right now makes no sense, and we're only making the problem worse. Remember that. Doesn't matter how good you think your intentions are, you're making the problem worse because there are more terrorists today than there were when we started the war on terror. And that's just an objective fact. The problem of jihadism has gotten worse since we started the war on terror, the war on jihadism. So if you actually give a shit about empiricism and reason and reality, you would say, well, obviously what we're doing right now ain't working. We got to change course. This is one important way to change course because they don't want us there, and the problem promises to sort itself out in a better way if we're not involved messing it up further.